ChaiFM, your station of choice since 2008.
Right, of course, we've been following the story and trying to figure out the influence of Qatar in the negotiations for the freeing of the hostages, because definitely they're playing a very important role. We just saw the International Red Cross as well going to Qatar before she went to Gaza, and all of a sudden barely even mentioned the hostages. So definitely there is the sense that strings are being pulled from Qatar. What is the influence of the Saudi deal? Very, very interesting to try and figure all of this out. What is really happening behind the scenes? Professor Efraim Inabr is the president of the Jerusalem Institute for Strategy and Security. A very, very good morning to you. Thank you for joining us. How are you?
Good morning to you. I'm fine.
Good. Lovely to speak to you again. So the influence of Qatar in the negotiations around the hostages was very significant, and we saw that. I can't remember which day it was. Hamas was seen to be playing games. Maybe it was day 2, and all of a sudden we saw Qatar saying no more, and then the next thing is it was resolved. How much control do they have of this situation?
Qatar is an ally of radical Islam, the Muslim Brotherhood in the Middle East, and they are to some extent the banker of Hamas. Not only that, they host the political leadership of Hamas in their territory, and so this is a source of their leverage on Hamas.
What do Qatar gain from it? Is it because of their ideology, or is there something else in it for them?
Obviously, they are ideologically helping Hamas. We shouldn't forget that they own Al Jazeera, which is a very popular TV station in the Middle East, and this station is a propaganda tool for radical Islam in the Middle East.
Yeah, it's really interesting, because yet somehow they still are trying to be more acceptable to the rest of the world, almost as though there's a line that obviously it's just about optics, but there seems to be a line that they don't cross, and that way they allow themselves to still be seen as a potential partner in this negotiation. How do you think they manage that?
They indeed try to endear themselves in certain Western quarters. We shouldn't forget that they are, buying football teams. They are giving money to American and other universities. Well. So they use their money to gain goodwill, and at the same time to be an agent for radical Islam, hoping to get away with it because they have the money.
What is the relationship with Iran?
Qatar is playing with Iran, of course. It's close to Iran. I can understand them. It's a small country, and Iran is very threatening. It's a large country. And they are also helping Iran, helping Taliban. And they are able to resist American pressure because they built a large air base. That's the largest base American base in the Middle East, I would add. And this is something that the Americans appreciate. The Americans don't pay a penny for this installation. So again, they try to get away with a lot of things by paying.
Right. I mean, it's a strange thing that the US would allow a military base there, knowing that the agendas are, in fact, it's the very opposite of all of their values. It's what the United States, as a Western democracy, is actually fighting against. How would it ever transpire that they would be able to set up a military base in the area?
If you get something from free as a gift, you don't always ask too many questions. And the American foreign policy quite often displays a lot of naivete.
Yeah, and in terms of Qatar and Saudi Arabia?
We should not forget that Saudi Arabia, as other Gulf countries, tried to ostracize Qatar for over a year, and they were not successful. Qatar mobilized Turkish forces who were sent to Qatar to defend it, and having a large money reserve helped them to overcome the campaign of isolation against it.
Can Qatar emerge from this conflict as the country that hosts and provides shelter for Hamas, who very, very clearly, as you've mentioned, funds Al Jazeera? Can they emerge from this conflict as they went into it, or has their reputation here been damaged in terms of how they are viewed by Western democracies?
This is a question I really cannot answer because the crisis is not over, and I'm afraid that their money will buy goodwill, and their flirting with terrorist organizations and being a voice for radical Islam will be forgiven for the right amount of money.
Yep, unfortunately, I think you're right. That was Professor Efraim Inabr, President of Jerusalem Institute for Strategy and Security, talking about the influence of Qatar. It is 8:54. I'm Howard Feldman. Good morning.